Gotcha.
Let me change the screen real quick. All right. I can hear you. We're just going to start now. By the way, everybody in here, I'm the Iron Sun, and I'm in here with my guest, Rebel Against Defeat. Yeah, here we are. And the title of this video today is How to Debate Effectively with Emotional People.
How do we debate with emotional people? Well, great.
It's a trick title.
Facts are facts over feelings, right? So when you're dealing with an emotional person, you know that the emotions are going to steer them to their agenda, to their argument, to their position within the discussion. So a lot of times when I'm dealing with emotional people, there's like this microaggression, and the facts don't matter. And dealing with the emotions is sometimes it's just easier to walk away. The best thing to do is state your opinion and stick to it. When the emotions get involved, that's when things happen. That's when you've got uh, arguments, tempers flare. You've got issues with one has to be right, right? It's too difficult to agree to disagree with an emotional person. Emotional people are microaggressive. So it doesn't matter the facts. It could be a full moon, but if that emotional person doesn't feel happy, it could be a half a moon, regardless of the facts. So it's difficult to deal with. In my book, especially ladies that are really emotional, you just really have to lay your boundary down and walk away.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Yeah. So I would agree with that. I think that a lot of those conversations end up being extremely volatile. Um, I think this is especially the case for most females, like that you have a conversation with, especially with a lot of the topics that would lead to an argument or a debate with a woman. Would
Mm-hmm.
probably it would probably elicit strong emotion, which they're more intuitive. So if you get in a conversation with them trying to come on some logical stuff, it has to be stuff. It only works if it's information she already agrees with, basically. So like if the woman has your bias, then you can debate. But then what's the chances of that, right? Especially in this sphere, with a lot of the opinions that fly out of the manosphere and the red pill, there's not a good chance with that. I've seen it in terms of what's going on now with the jab and all that stuff. You get a lot of people who have various opinions over it, and obviously, it's really difficult to even have the conversation nowadays because there's so much emotion, and it makes it difficult to actually get to the truth because you have people not even willing to have the conversation just to make someone feel better.
It's people, especially there's a lot of guys that are run by their emotions now. They're not using logic, right? It's a fear based. Um, it's you're dealing with it. If you're a logical person and you're dealing with someone emotional, it's going to be very difficult to come and have middle ground because the emotional person will not look at facts like a logical person will.
Yeah.
And we tend to hunker down on what we believe is right. Now, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, instead of it's not 3,000 miles from California to New York; it's 2,800,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, I could hold on my position. Well, 3,000 is close to 2,800, but the facts are it's 2,800, regardless if it's 2,800 or not. But if I'm an emotional person, I'm going to hold to my perception that I believe I'm right because that's how I am, and I have no room to budge to make it to look at the facts. I won't even look at the facts because the facts take away from this adherence to a position, and it makes them look weak or wrong if the facts prove them. If they look at the facts. So an emotional person that can't be wrong.
Right.
They can't apologize. They can't accept accountability or responsibility. So when you're a logical person that takes accountability and responsibility, and hey, if you're wrong, and it's like it's my bad, right? my bad, I totally effed up, or I totally screwed up. You take responsibility. You're willing to deal with it. But an emotional person will not take accountability or responsibility, regardless if the facts prove them wrong.
This is what I heard. Some of the things that I've heard with what you were saying. Let me know if this is right. So, or let me know what you think on this, rather. So, from what I've heard, it sounds like emotional people who are based in emotion in terms of how they think. I would say, these people would be typically right hemisphere dominant individuals in terms of their brain and how they process information. So that would be largely women and also highly creative men as
Right.
well. So,
Right.
but mostly women. So it sounds like you're saying that these type of individuals would actually put their perceived status over personal integrity. That's what I heard.
100%. And it's an accountability piece, right? To admit you're wrong is to admit fault, which is accountability and responsibility. An emotional person hardly will admit that because they're so stuck to grasping how they feel, that feelings are the only thing that matter. And so if they feel that way, it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. They're going to continue to be right. So it's difficult to have any sort of agreement or any sort of discussion with somebody when you are presenting facts and they're presenting feelings. There's a whole adage, facts over feelings, right? We don't care about your feelings. We care about the facts because facts don't care about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings are fleeting. So when I'm dealing with a very emotional person, I know that this person's not going to acknowledge fault and acknowledge accountability or responsibility for anything. So it's almost like I'm dealing with a mental disorder. How do you deal with someone? You don't.
So
you lay your facts down and you move on.
Yeah, this is kind of where I would say you have some individuals that are capable of this. I would actually argue it's less than 5%, which would make it statistically rare for an individual whenever they're emotionally compromised. They'll actually tell you they're emotionally compromised and they won't hold it against you. Now, in this particular case, I would say with women, it's probably less than 5%, which would make it rare. But that's something, I think that's something you typically see with guys, the behavior where if they're actually super emotional, there's a good chance they'll come back and, they might be blabbing off at the mouth at first, but if the man is masculine enough and has enough pride in his masculinity, which is it's rooted in logic. Like masculinity is rooted in logic. Um, um, there's a good chance he'll at least come back and admit that he was full of shit because I mean, I think for us, since for men, the reason why here's the thing. I think the people in the manosphere, sometimes they make it seem like guys are like, it's like this, oh, well, men are the logical ones and that's why we do this and this and that. Yes, that's the case. And I'm not disagreeing with that. The issue I see is that if men could get away with things by being emotional like women, we would do it. But here's the thing, we can't get away with it. And also for a lot of us, it's kind of I think it's a point of pride that we don't want to stoop to that particular level because of our need to be competent, which competence I've been thinking and studying and figuring out. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about this and he doesn't really go into everything in terms of like the nitty gritty. That motherfucker skates across a lot of shit. But competence for men is extremely important because it's one of the main, like, we can't go up dominance hierarchies off of looks. Like, we need to be actually competent at something and good at something, because then that's how we foster cooperation and acceptance from other people.
Right.
Competence.
Well, the reality is you're absolutely right. Somebody that is emotional is also a blamer, will play the victim role, right? Because that fills the narrative. It fills the narrative of no accountability. Another time, if you present facts, you're considered a hater. You're considered, toxic just by bringing up facts. It's funny. I was I remember watching some of the protests with the Seattle Occupy. I don't know, it was last year, right, with the BLM movement, and they occupied that space in Seattle, like several blocks. And I remember seeing uh, this black lady that was going in to the area, and she was quite a conservative type woman. And there's a white lady at the gate who was on the BLM side on this whole Occupy anarchist, partition. And the black lady's like, and she was yelling at the black lady saying, "You don't know what you're talking about." And yet the fact of the matter is she was the black one, and the other gal that was defending her emotions was a white gal.
Hmm.
Was the weirdest thing. And it's just basically a woman of that would have fit that narrative is displaying facts to this girl that's not even part of that narrative, and her feelings are
Well, you're saying the black girl gave the facts to the white girl?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the white girl is yelling emotional at the black girl saying, "Get out of here, this isn't for you." It's like it was the biggest disconnect of all time. But again, her feelings were running the narrative of everything. And if you get into that point, if you're dealing with someone who runs by their feelings, and it could be a man or a woman, that's a mental disorder, because there's no accountability, there's no responsibility, it's a victim blame situation, and it's just you can't win. So
Yeah, it's prolific in universities. It's everywhere. And it's pretty strong in the workforce right now, which any guy who's in the universities and even in the workforce, landmines. Like, be careful with that. Like, I've witnessed going to court firsthand off of talking about flirting with a woman. I've witnessed that firsthand. So for any guys out there who watch this later, definitely watch your ass.
yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, like Jordan Peterson talks a lot about facts over feelings, right? And he talks also about nice guys, where nice guys are way into their emotional state, and that's why they're so agreeable. And agreeable means weakness to another, to the female sex,
Yeah.
because
which
um,
which is hilarious because they a lot of times they'll say, hey, why, they'll complain about a guy not showing or being disagreeable and not being agreeable, but then they'll fuck most of the guys say they fuck are what, highly disagreeable guys also who aren't really privy with showcasing their emotions.
right. Would you rather hang out with a dude that takes 100% responsibility if he's right or wrong, or with a dude that just blames and plays victim the whole time? Right? That's a weak-minded man in touch with his feminine side of emotions. I don't like to hang out with those types of people. When you're playing football, does it really care if the ball goes in or not, how happy or sad you are? No. The fact of the matter is, you shoot the ball regardless of if you're happy or sad. Now, if you're angry, that emotion is probably going to not shoot that ball, but that ball's going in factually based on physics, not based on your feelings. And so I like to, when you brought this topic up, I thought about some of the players in the NBA that never ever got emotional, right? And the players that do get emotional. Yeah, I can say Damon Lillard for the Blazers, it's my favorite team. He's a very non-emotional player. If he gets a foul, brushes it off, and waits for the next possession. Whereas Russell Westbrook, very emotional guy. He's up and down. When he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. But the ball doesn't care about Russell Westbrook's emotions. The ball cares about physics. And so when a guy can take the fault, he threw it out of bounds, he made a bad pass, he lost it off a dribble. Lillard gets back to the next possession, whereas Russell Westbrook's throwing a fit to the referees, getting in someone's faces, stomping his legs, needs to go out. I mean, again, facts don't care about feelings.
Yeah.
But you see it all over. You see it in the professional workplace. You see it in athletics. You see it in the media, especially actors and actresses, and you see it with government based on Look who's in office right now. He's a classic emotional driven dude. Based off of blaming and playing victim. And so it's a lot easier to not accept responsibility and to not be accountable. It's easy because you just blame someone. Why not, right? But when you take accountability and responsibility, that's the harder. That's the hard road. That's a road that's got integrity. That's hard for a lot of people.
There's a so back to the original part of this. I don't know. I guess I wanted to hone in on that accountability thing, just to why. Why do you think it's easier to hold men more accountable than women in our current society?
Well, I think it goes to programming based on how we are. Our brains are so different, right? The man's brain is more logical. Although I would say in the last 15 years, the male brain has turned real snowflake, real fragile.
Yeah, it's the food.
It's the food or something.
It's the food. It's the culture as well.
Yep, media. Just that if you express your opinion of right or wrong, you're wrong because you're a man. So there's a lot of issues, but a man can take accountability much better just based on our brain chemistry. I mean, that's just kind of how we're equipped. We're very direct in terms of our thought processes versus a woman's thought processes. Our brains compute, reality different. Now, someone writes, Emmanuel, is the emotionality a response to having their reality shaken, or is it how they decide whether things are true or not? Which of the two do you think are easier to save? Ooh, very solid question.
That's interesting.
I
need to put that up, man.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe beforehand they decide if it's true or not, and I don't think I think it's two pronged, right? I think they go in saying this is what they believe to be right, and this will be right forever. And is their reality shaken? Well, the reality is shaken in a sense, but they're not gonna, what would be the word? Acknowledge that. And so that's why the anger and when they get all upset and their emotions are just shooting through the roof and their voice raises and they're huffing and puffing is because they know the reality, but they've got this cognitive dissonance, right? If you guys know that term in psychology, this mental gymnastics that they're playing with themselves, but they're so determined to hold onto their position regardless of the facts. And hey, I was married. I know. I mean, I dealt with this for 20 years, almost 20 years of a lot of emotional based narratives, regardless. The facts were right. I was proven right probably 99% of the time afterwards.
What inspired you to go so long?
We had, there was good times. There was good times in the marriage. We had kids. We went through a lot together. And then about probably the last quarter, 4 to 5 years is when things really began to unravel. It was difficult. Marriage or living or even a long-term relationship is difficult, but I was never a quitter. I always had this hope in my back of my mind that things would eventually get better.
Sounds like a masculine thing there.
Where you don't quit. Men don't quit. 80% of divorces are filed by women just because we don't like to quit. We don't like to get rid of it. That's why when guys go through breakups, they're so devastated is because they put all this emotional and a mental, physical, financial, emotional investment into her. And yeah, it could suck the relationship, but we don't like to lose.
Right.
We like our emotional bank account. Hey, remember when I did this for you and we went here and I bought this and I took care of you when you were sick? We look at those things as an investment where they don't. And I think that's why men get so
yeah. Wrong. Wow, that's a pretty big statement there.
Well, it's the truth because a woman, back to emotions. Women run on emotions, right? And so their emotions steer them on how they're going to live. So you could be a wonderful guy an hour ago, picking her up from her medical appointment, taking her to lunch, giving her a back rub, And then an hour later, she brings up something you did 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's upset at you, regardless of what you just did. See, everything's in the now with the woman. I mean, the great thing about ladies is they're always thinking in the now, right? They're not in the past or the future. Typically, they're always in the now. Now they'll bring up the past,
Yeah.
but they're constantly driven, and that's why our brains are so different. We're logical, they're emotional. That's why there's such a huge couples counseling industry, self-help books on relationships, how the man can be better. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and we still aren't even close to understanding one another.
Yeah, and we keep trying to do this equality thing, and that's kind of making it even further and further apart. So I'm gonna go into one aspect of this conversation that I think is important, and just kind of introduce the topic. So this is for people who end up debating a person who's emotional, a woman, or even a guy who's a feminist. Which basically any guy who's in that emotional type of energy is most likely going to be a feminist. That's just number one. Um, I could be wrong on that. That's just a guess. Um, so what you just said with the divorce stats, which are backed by attorneys, a lot of attorneys back this information that women represent 70 to 80% of the divorce. Like they actually initialize 70 to 80% of divorces.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever it's funny because like I was having a conversation with someone recently, it was an older woman about it, and I noticed whenever you have the conversation and you bring up facts and information, a lot of times people you have the conversation with, they'll actually flip it. So they'll do a pressure flip. So they'll flip it on the other side and say, "Well, men do it too," right? That's a common tactic that a lot of people deal with whenever they're debating someone who's emotional.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think emotional people, again, they're going to acknowledge and hunker down on their position regardless, and they will do everything to make the other person the wrong. And whether that's flipping everything around, flipping the words around, and this could be a man or a woman. So there's male feminists, there's very weak men uh, that have a lot of estrogen in them that do the same thing. Kids today are very emotional. They cry about anything. If someone looks at them wrong, they're now they, now there's a hater. You know, if they get a bad grade on a test, now the teacher, he's a hater. You know, they can't accept responsibility, and I think that's the biggest plague of our world now: accountability and responsibility. Male and female nature will continue to be the same. You know, we're seeing males now being a lot more feminine, women being more masculine. But accountability,
That's not working for. That's not working for us.
it's accountability. I mean, look, when I grew up, my dad was tough. You know, if you lost your soccer ball, you had to go buy a new one. You know, you didn't blame the fact that somebody didn't remind you to pick your soccer ball up at soccer practice. You had to go and mow lawns that weekend and go buy yourself a new one because you're responsible for that. Now there is no responsibility anymore. You lose something, mom and dad will come in and buy it again, teach you no lesson. And that's the difference between growing up when I grew up and the kids growing up today. Now I hold my boys accountable for everything, you know. They've got one chance. If they get a ticket on driving their car, they're paying for it. If their insurance goes up, they're paying the difference. So keeping people accountable is the only way forward, but it's difficult, especially with women today. And being in relationships with women, they're beautiful. They're, you know, I've got nothing wrong with ladies. It's just you have to know how to deal emotionally with a woman, which is not being emotional with them. When you're emotional with a woman, you now turn into a woman yourself or a female.
And then she'll stop liking you, which is kind of ironic.
Really, there's only two things you can say to an emotional if you're in a relationship and it's going, you know, difficult. You can say no and no and hold your ground and don't allow them to, because women are wonderful at switching things around and getting you to do things and making you think differently. The second thing is you can only say to them, if they say, "Hey, Iron Son, you're such an a-hole. You're always you're such a dick to me all the time," and all you can say is this: "I can't imagine what you're feeling right now, but it's got to be tough." That's it. I can't imagine what you're going through. I can't believe you've had to suffer for so long. That's it. You can't fight them and say, "Bullshit, I was wonderful to you yesterday. I took you here, we went there, I took you out, I got you this, I made amazing." You can't. That doesn't matter. You can only fight an emotion with the acknowledgement of the emotion.
Well, here's the immediate issue I see with that. None of that belongs in the workforce.
Agree.
That means you can't hold your workers accountable, and you can't provide a good service to the customers.
Yep.
And that basically means the boss has their hands tied with certain employees. If there's a lot of women on the job, if there's a lot of emotional men on the job, which I believe there'll be more emotionality with the women, but still, regardless, the boss is going to have his hands tied, especially with his or her hands tied, especially if um, so you know how companies have like quotas, or you know how, oh, we have to hire this many black people or this many, because the same thing goes with race too. Because if you have let's say I get offended at my job, right? And say an employee was, or fellow employee was treating me wrong or something like that. Now they can't really take into effect just the meritocracy of it, and just the facts. Like, you did this, he did this, or she did this. Now they have to think about a bunch of other dumb metrics, like, well, I need this many black employees, I need this many white employees, this many female employees, and I need to cater to people's emotions so that I could follow these numbers. So it kind of fucks everything up.
Yeah, and you go back to Martin Luther King, who said that people should get the job based on merit, not by their emotional state or their sex or their color or their religion. It was, hey, if that Chinese person was better at the job, great. If the white person was great, if the woman was better, great. They get the job based on merit. And we've completely lost sense of that logic. And let's say James Bruce says something. Throw that comment up there, Iron Son. Thousands of years cannot undo human nature. Everyone waiting to be offended, everyone getting a medal is foreign to our human nature. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I say that, now kids today, they get a medal and a trophy even if they lose. The only people that got trophies in my growing up years as a youngster were the ones that won. It's the only team that won. The losers didn't get trophies. They didn't get ribbons. And now everyone's a winner. Everyone's a champion. There's no accountability. Can you imagine if in the future, like the Super Bowl, they're going to have two champions, even though the losing team didn't win, they're still going to get a medal. Again, he's absolutely right. You cannot undo human nature. Everyone is waiting to be offended. Everyone's looking out for the next offense, the next allegation, the next, and they're labeling it misogyny. They're labeling it bigotry. They're labeling toxicity.
I have a comment on those words when I get back. I gotta go let my dogs in. I'll be back.
Right on. I see emotionality as a vice. Something people indulge in when life is too easy, and they are people who protect them from the consequences of doing so. Sure, absolutely, amen. Well, that said, perhaps reducing emotionality in society requires a good incentive structure. Make it as costly to women and male feminists to be emotional as it is for men. That would be wonderful if that would, if unfortunately the government and corporations are now so geared toward not offending people that they're willing to literally, the logical people are getting the brunt, right? We're getting the short end of the stick. The emotional people are the one who get the grease, right? So I was just responding to the comment, but the emotions are, look at the alphabet soup agenda right now. Let's just say 10% of the world's population fits into that category. They have so much attention, and they're getting so much. They have laws, specific laws that are written for their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically infiltrating everything. Sports Illustrated just has a person on that cover that's part of that group. And I don't want to say too many words because I just got a video that got copyrighted for hate speech.
Oh snap!
I have no idea why, but anyhow,
Yeah,
but
the alphabet mafia is pretty rough.
yeah, and now we have to change what we call people, right? If they want us to call them certain pronouns, it just, when is it going to stop?
You can't
So
even you can't even call like with mothers. You can't call them breastfeeding mothers anymore. You have to call them breastfeeding persons and stuff. And people, it's funny because the women didn't start getting mad with this stuff until they couldn't compete anymore. Until the guys started going in their sports and beating them at everything. Then they saw it's weird how when they actually see it happens, then they can understand why it's a dumb idea. Like when it messes up what they want. Like it has to. I think with women you have to appeal to their self-interest because I mean, a lot of people wouldn't like saying, like Mike me saying this, but they're very selfish in nature. Like they need to be, especially with having kids and stuff like that. A lot of guys be like, well, I don't want my woman to be selfish. It's like, but you would want them to be like that if it came to saving your kid's life. And that's just a fact of life. They're selfish. So in order to actually get them on your side, you would have to. But here's the reality as well. Most people are. So in order to get most people on your side with a lot of this stuff, you have to appeal to their self interest. You want to win the races when you go run track, right? All right, we'll get them out of there. Make it a fair race. Only females. It's a simple end to the conversation, but it doesn't quite ring bells unless it actually impacts the person's current way of life.
absolutely, and there's now a few countries that don't let emotions in. You could probably name them, and they're not in the Americas, right?
No, not at all.
You look at China, facts over feelings. You look at what just happened in Afghanistan, facts over feelings. None of this wimpy snowflake type crap. You look at Russia as well. They don't allow this kind of crap. I know they've gotten a little bit more, um, you know, but Putin does not allow that kind of behavior. France, different story. U.S., the West, Canada. Look, you could throw a fit for your emotions and probably get out of paying the traffic ticket. But if you go in and say, "Hey, I take responsibility for this. I was going over the limit. I had a good reason for it. My dog needed to get to the vet. What have you? That doesn't matter." The world we run on, especially in the court system. You want to talk about emotions? That's how women run their court their divorces. I mean, they're run on emotions. My attorney said that to me, that most women, especially that file for divorces, try to use emotions but the court, it shouldn't care about emotions. They care about facts. However, depends on your counsel and the judge.
Probably not going to give them a good payout.
Right. See, they want this going on, and if they
They're
go off,
selfish too. Yeah.
so the emotions have run this economy in certain aspects for quite some time, right? They've run in the education department, emotions in the human resources department for companies, and the whole affirmative action crap, which is basically reverse racism or reverse discrimination. Again, I follow Martin Luther King's ideals, which is he who has better merit gets the job, or she, regardless of anything.
Yeah.
It's not good enough anymore because the whole world movement is run on. We've got quotas. We have to have now they're saying companies now have to have a chief diversity officer. Have you heard that now?
Yeah, I've heard that shit.
Now imposing
You gotta understand how annoying that is to hear. Like for me, as like a black guy, because it's like it's weird. It's weird being told that you're a victim when you've actually grown up and had a hard life, and you actually want to be seen as someone who can be taken serious. Like, you can't even go to a college without getting handouts just because you're black or something. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's good, man, but like that, I guess they don't have that. They're not at that stage where they want to have some sort of dignity about themselves and actually be seen as a capable person. But you can't be seen as a capable person when people are feeling sorry for you. If you're a woman, black guy, what, a lesbian, transgender, lesbian, any of that, you can't be. If someone's feeling sorry for you and they're giving you free handouts, they're keeping you in a childlike state, and you're allowing it. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. It's interesting that the alphabet agenda has now is upset that those that have transitioned from male to female are now competing in female sports and dominating, and they don't like that, but they allowed it. You see how facts, and even in their own world, now they've gone full circle, right? It's nonsense. Now, jump down to Emmanuel's last comment here. It says, something else you could do to reduce emotionality in society is to pit one emotional, illogical group against another, then have a logical person swoop in. That would be interesting. Two competing emotional groups, both geared towards. Well, it's happening. It's happening. The feminists don't like those that have transitioned from male to female,
which are most of the transitions.
Yeah,
which should tell us something about the male condition, by the way.
Yeah, so they don't. Those are two emotional groups that don't like each other, and then when the logical lawmaker comes in and says, "Hey, they can't compete because you've allowed it," and that's equality. If you think about it, if a guy if a man transitions into a female, and he does everything legally and whatever through the doctors and through the courts to change the person's name and sex and gender, that person should be allowed to compete. Unfortunately, they wrote the laws. The feminists wrote the laws, and they need to literally sleep. They need to make their bed and sleep in it.
Yeah.
Now, what else did he say? This is more for the crowd than the actual participants. Hopefully, over time, we can shift towards an enlightenment that is immune to the postmodern emotional rhetoric that is popular today. That would be great if we could go back, but the programming, unfortunately, with that, the programming is too deep. It would take generations, and it would take generations of.
Oh my god! Yeah, you're probably right. It's just horrible to hear it.
People say this all the time. Hey, Rab, but listen, if there's a war, strong men will emerge, and women will be submissive and docile and be co-pilots again. I go, they will till the war's over.
Exactly.
And then the programming will seep back up.
Yeah, you kind of said that we're kind of already in one. We're already in one. It's not really. It's funny because like the scenario that people are presenting about this in this particular community, like it's funny to me because we're kind of already in that situation. We're in a warlike situation, like in the United. It just doesn't look like it, and for a lot of people, whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. This is one of those. I think this is one of the greatest things that could have happened for the red pill community in terms of gender, because this scenario was making it extremely difficult for people to not recognize true reality.
Sure.
Because you have people dying left and right from taking the jabberdo, whatever you want to call it. Can't say the actual thing or I'll get my channel messed up, but you have a lot of people coming to terms with what could have been, like with what may be either the end of their life or the end of someone they know life.
Sure.
A lot of like that kind of situation, being in that kind of austerity can kind of force people to think about real, truthful things,
Sure.
which is good for us because that means all of these hard things that we're trying to tell people to grapple with, it kind of like it's almost like because it's dark, like because it's light outside. Well, now because of the situation we're in, now they can see this. It's like, oh, okay, males do this. Okay, females do that. Oh, wow, why didn't I see that before? Because we because we were in a, everyone was super comfortable with all their trophies and all of their handouts, and
Yeah, it's about comfort, right? It's about what really runs an emotional person is fear of being wrong, fear of losing identity, fear of losing narrative. Shout out to Red Pill Medicine. Good to see you, brother, out in the mountains enjoying life with no nagging around and no drama. Love it. Um, uh, yeah, it's fear based. An emotional person is fear that they'll be wrong, fear that they'll be insignificant, fear that their opinion won't be heard, fear that basically that they'll have to be accountable. They don't want to. They look. A person that runs on their emotions will never take accountability. It's your fault. They will blame everyone else but them, even though that they bought a car. This is what's going to happen. They're going to buy a car, a used Honda Civic, and they're going to buy it from a private party or a dealer, and then 6 weeks later, the air conditioning goes out. Now, they knew the car was as is. There was no warranty. They didn't purchase a warranty. And then they take it back to the dealer and say, hey, you sold me a lemon. No, you had all of the data at hand to correctly purchase this. You could have had a mechanic look at it. You could have bought an extended warranty. You didn't do that. We do not imply that this car is brand new. This car is a used car and is sold as is. But the person is so determined that they were right and the person that sold the car was wrong that they're going to throw their emotional, agenda into it. And that's what happens. Facts over feelings. And so then you have to go and they take them to small claims court and the judge says, ma'am, this happened to me. I sold my kid's Honda Civic in the summer or in April, and 3 days later, she calls me and says the back window doesn't go down. I said that's interesting because all the windows went down when you checked the car out. The locks worked, the windows. You drove it, you loved it. You didn't want a mechanic to come. I go, and your son was in the back. He was, I think he had special needs, but he was playing with the window and the switches and hitting them up and down multiple times. And I said, hey, I sold you the car as is. You can go get an actuator, which costs $20 and have a mechanic put it in. She says, you going to help me with that? And I said, absolutely not. No, you bought the car. I asked you 3 times. If you need to have a mechanic, you can take the car to a shop, have them look at it. But anything that happens the moment you drive away is your responsibility. And she called me all upset. You sold me something you knew. I didn't know. Your kid is in the back hitting and slobbering and spitting and hitting on the keys. And, unfortunately, this child was, special needs, but she would not take accountability. She had to blame me. And who was she? Feminist. Probably most likely ran in the alphabet soup agenda. I know that she was a larger, heavy woman, short haircut with a bull ring, and her adopted son was a black baby that had special needs. And so that this is a woman that blames everyone except herself.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, he kind of pointed out the woman as if as a feminist. Just understand, all women are feminists. If y'all have seen the work of Rollo Tomasi, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying all women worship the feminist moniker or the feminist banner. I'm saying all women, because of how prolific feminism is and how long it's infiltrated our communities, pretty much every feminist catchphrase is absorbed by every woman. And if you say it around the women, they'll know what you're talking about and they'll agree with it. So basically, every woman is a feminist.
I would say
they don't believe the deeper parts of the ideology.
Yeah, 98% of women are not recommended in my book. I don't say they're bad. I say they're not recommended based on that. Let's see. What does Emmanuel say? What about enabling white knights? If you can win them over, that's most of the job done. Well, if there were no Simpson white knights and there were strong alpha type or strong men, I won't call them alpha, but men that stood their ground and used facts and not emotions, then there wouldn't be a lot of simps and white knights allowing women to act the way they want emotionally. I remember a friend of mine. His wife was always emotional. She was always upset about something, always blamed him for everything. And my friend would always apologize for her, even though she was the one at fault.
Mm-hmm.
He would take the blame. And the situation never got better. So that's what white knights and simps do. And let's see, red pill medicine. Absolutely, simps and white knights are massive problems. If we cannot get through to them, this war will never be won. Women getting free attention for zero effort. And that right there is the crux of the problem. Weak men that have allowed the emotional narrative to run its course and that's the agenda. Emotions. If you want to talk government, the reason facts won in 2016, emotions won in 2020, and we know what happened, but let's just go off that narrative. The person in office has put a cabinet together based on emotions. Mm-hmm. Look what's going on in the last 72 hours. That's based on emotions, not facts. And we're seeing it. So, again, it goes to deep programming. How do you get white knights and simps not to worship and pedestalize emotional creatures? If we knew the only way that they're going to become non-white knight and not being a simp anymore is if they go through something so devastating and they catch, and this is what will happen. I'll tell you exactly what will happen. A white knight gets broken up. He gets monkey branched on. So what does he do? He tries to win her over, tries to apologize. I'll be better. I'll go to counseling. I'll get anger management. Starts showing up, calling, crying, what have you, acting like a woman, basically. That woman's totally disgusted with this white knight. So what does he do? He goes on the internet, goes to YouTube, and he says, how can I get my ex back? Right? So there's all these get your ex back video, and you go no contact, and, go on your social media and show you're having a great time, so it'll trigger her to wonder what you're up to, and blah, 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 blah. Well, a lot of times these white knights will stumble across a channel like yours or mine or somebody else's talking about never take your ex back. And that seems to have helped quite a few white knights and simps really open up. But then they become purple pill, and then they say, well, I understand the red pill, and I can see where the hypergamy and the Brafalt's law and the monkey branching came in, but I still believe in the fantasy that I can find a wonderful woman.
That's along. Why am I echoing? Hold on.
Do you got another version of YouTube up or your phone on with YouTube? That's probably why.
I don't have another version or anything.
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, I think I fixed it. So I was going to say one of the ways I think you could deal with white knights, which the difficulty right now for dealing with them is because of IG and because of social media. If you could actually so I'll present the scenario like this. Let's say you had a whole room full of red pill men and white knights, no women. Now compare the interactions in that room with another room, just as a science experiment. You got 3 women in the room, you got 3 red pill men, and then you have 30 white knights. Now so I'd imagine you're going to have significantly more accountability with the room where there's just men because of nature. By nature, men hold each other accountable because we've operated in groups, regardless of whether the man is a simp or whether the man is a red pill man. We've evolved to operate in groups in order to survive, like going out on the hunt, basically. Okay, you're gonna have to hold the staff correctly in order to throw it at the woolly mammoth to kill the woolly mammoth. And also, we're gonna have to determine who can throw the staff, like which guys in these groups are the best at throwing the staff so they can guide everyone else and tell people where they need to be. So we need leaders, and we need to increase basically the efficiency of hunting so that everyone can get food.
Sure.
So with that, you get the room full of guys, versus the room full of guys and a couple of girls. You know, the red pill guys, you got like a handful, but then you have like 30 white knights. I think that's the solution. That would basically mean all of social media would have to black out overnight. If all
Well,
of social media blacks out overnight, and let's say you get male only gyms, so you'd need male spaces to have that type of framework. I don't see that happening anytime soon because even the gym isn't a male space anymore. Now the gyms are kind of integrated, and that's presenting a lot of difficulties just off of that alone.
yeah, I really think that the white knight simping is going to continue for quite some time, and until men begin to slowly. Right now, it's just at the very, very tip of the iceberg of men just saying, "Hey, relationships in modern day world are not worth it anymore. They're too risky with very little reward. Risky in terms of monkey branching or getting in trouble. Looks like red pill medicine's friend was evicted, and the popo was called. Jeez."
That's messed up.
His reply, she's a great woman. She's going to let me see my son. Wow. He thinks she's amazing because she will see
Yep.
she will allow him to see his own son. Well, that's worshiping a woman.
There must be a lot of stuff going on in the comment section, man. I'm trying to highlight the best stuff.
This man is a great guy who works as an ambulance driver. He's probably seen a lot of stuff too. Never laid a finger on her. Of course, she got emotional, right? He was probably he sounds like a nice guy, good guy. And well, she's bored. So she needs drama and emotion. Remember, a woman loves negative and positive attention. It doesn't matter which way. Give her positive, she'll like it. If she's too bored, you're too nice, she's going to bring shit up. Just that's the way they run. I'm sorry. If that's that's my experience. Bring up negative. They're all most of them are archaeologists because they love to dig the past up. These men, let's go down to amen. Well, emotions only win because it's beneficial in the very short term while being too costly to confront for anyone who is responsible and has a long-term outlook, especially in politics and relationships. Well said. These men then conditioned their whole life will take miracles to wake some of these brothers up. Your channel lots more help greatly. Yeah, I mean, that's the key. I mean, I've had guys come to my channel that say, I used to be a simp. I started watching these things. That's great. And we wish there was tons of them. And I think some of the bigger creators are getting the message off to more purple pill type guys. But again, it's a programming. And I think Emmanuel's right. Emotions win in the short term. Remember, if a woman throws a fit, okay, let's say this. My first child is a girl. When she was 5 years old, if she didn't get her way, she cried. Stomped her feet, cried. Now, did I argue with a 5-year-old that's crying, or did I just walk away? I walked away. I said, nope, you can't do that because you didn't clean up your dollies. You can't have an ice cream cone. You didn't clean your dollies up, so she'd cry and blah, blah, blah. And they learn at a very early age. Now, a lot of guys today that are fathers will pacify that girl and give her the ice cream.
Daddy's little girl syndrome.
Yeah, go and clean the dollies up so she doesn't have to do it. So how does that work?
You guys are assholes.
Now that girl knows she can throw a fit because the next time she throws a fit, she knows daddy will give in. So that's the reality of, where a lot of our society and civilization is going. No accountability, no responsibility, no taking 100% responsibility for your actions and your behaviors. It's, hey, I went out and I yelled at somebody. I pulled a Karen. A lot of these Karens that you see on these videos, talk about feelings over facts. That's all it's based on. They're right. Even the guys sitting, they're filming them saying, look, I'm 100% legal to be in this parking space. I'm not even near your car. And she's throwing a fit that the guy's angry and racist and all this crap. It's like that New York, the guy that was in, the black guy that was in the New York Central Park with the girl that claimed he was threatening her. And he had a video of her. Did you see that one? And
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and then she got fired from her job, and the black guy's like, "Hey, you need a leash on that. You need a leash on the dog. It's a law. You you're making me uncomfortable. You're making me not feel safe. You're doing this. You're doing that. You hate women. And she was saying, no. He's like, no. I'm telling you, the law in Central Park says all dogs need to be on a leash and muzzled, and your dog is not. And he's taking a photo or a video. It went viral. It was on the news and everything. Again, feelings over facts. She got fired from her job and everything. Her life sucked. Let's see, red pill medicine. These men been conditioned their whole life. Will take miracles to wake some of these brothers up. Yep, absolutely correct. These women who are at best a 5 out of 10 know they can treat a man who's better than her like crap, and he will either accept it or she knows he can be replaced yesterday. Yep. And that's, you know what? That's a good thing you said that, red pill medicine. Men are so scared of losing that woman because the woman can replace him. The majority, they have so many options due to social media, due to the phone. And so
it was already ridiculous a long time ago, man. Now it's like
yeah, they can be replaced. So no wonder they apologize and not and take responsive. They basically apologize for the woman treating them bad. So if the woman treats him bad, he says, it's my fault. I guess I need to fix myself. I should be better. Even though the woman is just not respectful or doesn't, honor the guy anymore and is disrespectful and mouthy, but he'll blame himself. Yeah, that is the world we live in.
I saw a guy at Target today. He was being berated by, I think it was this girl. It was a black guy. Now, a lot of the black women are super masculine, and they'll just go off of the mouth. I mean, the white women are masculine too, but they're better at hiding it, I guess. But like the black girl was getting on him, and he was saying not so loud, and I was just listening, just like, oh my god.
I was listening to Greg Adams. I don't know if you listen to him. And
monkey double backflips.
Yeah, he was talking about he doesn't date black gals. Just because they're mouthy, they're aggressive, masculine. I've seen YouTube videos where, a black couple, she's beating the crap out of him, and this guy looks like a thug.
It's harder to find super feminine black women. They're not very common at all. They're out there. I mean, Godspeed for the men who are looking for that. I wanted to address Fresh and Fit and the other, because we were talking about guys who are in their emotions and feelings and stuff, and like the accountability being an important thing. So Fresh and Fit, I don't know the particular guy's name, but he was starting some random beef with Abba and Preach, and they were kind of just going at it, and it was kind of sad because in my head I'm thinking, y'all have the same mission, and we're really doing this in the community right now. This is some woman shit. Seriously.
I think I saw Coach Greg Adams on Fresh and Fit, a year ago, maybe 9 months ago. The only thing, I don't really watch their channel because, number one, I'm a lot older than them. I've been through marriage. I've been through children. I've been through a lot more things than those guys have been. So I really don't take any of their advice seriously because they just don't have the experience to back themselves up like that I do. They've never been in a court. They have no idea that they've never had allegations against them. So they do provide a service for their audience. And I think their production is pretty good. But I haven't watched them for a long time. I think the last episode I watched was with Joker, Better Bachelor.
I haven't watched his stuff in a little bit. He came out with a video about guys or manosphere stuff on Reddit being taken off.
Yeah.
That's the last I've heard.
But I heard there was a beef. Coach Greg Adams was talking about it from yesterday's stream. Somebody super chatted and said the same. I don't really know Abba and Preach. I've seen a couple of quick videos on what they do, but I don't subscribe to either of those. But yeah, I think we should all be united in one goal, which is to unite masculinity, because the lack of masculinity is destroying this world.
Yeah, and I can see that with their little beef that was going on. It's as simple as getting them face to face and saying, "Hey, work this shit out," because Fresh and Fit, the angle I've heard is that they were. I mean, you can see their video, their stream, unless they took it down. They were just talking shit about the dude's wife and stuff. But then, and about the dude as well. And then the other guy, his friend came up on his channel and told the guy that he was acting like a child and stuff. And supposedly recently they were gonna like fly out to talk to each other and just chill and try to, make everything copacetic. But then the guy makes an IG post about going to get a gun or something like that.
Ooh.
Like right after having that conversation or something. Which I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is exactly what Abba and Preach were saying. They were like, I don't know. Maybe he just likes guns, but it was a little bit odd to go and get a gun after having that conversation.
So the fresh and fit guys are more into their emotions than Abba and Preach. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It seems it's kind of annoying for me, and that's what it appears to be.
I think they're really young kids. They don't have a lot of life experience. This is my personal opinion. They don't have a lot of life experience. They've never been married. They don't have children that I know of. They've never been through the court system. They don't know what it's like to buy multiple houses or raise a family. They know how to flex their muscles and nail chicks, but a lot of guys can nail chicks. So it's not very hard. And I think a lot of their stuff has been talked about already by other creators. So it's good that they have an audience of younger guys that are listening to them and they can bring out some red pill truth. But a guy that's in his emotions is not masculine, and the whole deal is to increase masculinity in the world, so that's what's killing us.
That's what I want to see, because that means if we hold the men accountable, then the men hold everyone else accountable, and that's what keeps everything stable.
Well, that's what happened in Rome. I mean, if you really want to see what's happening in modern day world today, go read the history of Rome, and you're seeing the exact same thing, where men get in touch with their emotions, the rise of the feminine leadership. It fell. One of the greatest societies and civilizations of all time fell. Now let's see, red pill medicine, see someone putting cans of beer, his wife told him to put it back. Well, it sounds like she was treating him like an 8-year-old or something.
Oh shit! Really?
Well, and they can do that now. If you tell a woman no, she could say that you are abusive.
That's voluntary servitude when you see those kind of situations.
Yeah.
That's how bad it's gotten, man. Yeah. You familiar with the truther community?
Yeah.
So even truthers, I have a video on my channel called The Truther Feminists, or The Feminist Truthers. Even truthers, like they're talking about what's going on and spreading information, but when they bring on female guests, they'll be like, well, come on guys, the females are in this fight, you got to be in this too and fight the mandates and all this stuff. It's like, come on, if they can do it, come on guys, like shaming the guys basically. Like there's this one big truther that does it, and it's kind of the funniest thing in the world, because I'll be like, wait, so y'all are trying to shame guys into doing this stuff, and you call yourself a truther, and you don't know about the feminist movement and basically like the shaming language that you're using? Like, I don't know, man. I had a video on that because when I heard that from a lot of truthers, it kind of like made me think, damn, okay, there must be a red pill for everything, and they just might not be red pilled on everything, or on this particular side of things. Because there's a red pill to politics, red pill to pharmaceuticals, there's a red pill to everything, which Sure. It just kind of showed me, like, I kind of learned really quick, okay, this isn't everywhere. Even in a truther community, you don't get this kind of conversation.
Again, emotions seem to be the prevailing narrative in life, and you see it even with MMA fighters. There's emotional issues that happen. There's, but yeah, we've got to come together as men, regardless of color, race, geography, height, body type, and realize that masculinity is the only way forward for strong nations and to move our society. So that's really what we should be unified on, and unification on what we can do to avoid pitfalls when if you're in a relationship, or understanding the risks and rewards of being married or having kids, or what the court system's like, and how to navigate life by allowing women to be part of your life in some form or fashion if that's what you so desire. I mean, that's kind of what this whole thing is. I mean, a man going his own way is just deciding, hey, I'm going to allow my life to go this way, and if I want to entertain a woman in this form or fashion, great. If I don't, great. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to buy into the Disney fantasy and the illusion that we can live happily ever after with a white picket fence. And there's dangers and downfalls and massive amounts of pitfalls and tar pits just going through marriage in today's world, or
Yeah, and
living
it's
with someone.
yeah, it's hard today because when you like a lot of times when you bring up the conversation of marriage, um, and you call it into question as a guy, I've noticed whenever I brought this conversation up to women or even people who are close to me, um, about my fiance in particular, because they would say, "Hey, man, aren't you gonna do like a legal marriage or something like that?" And I'll say, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, and I'll never do that." And I'll tell them why, but then they'll say, "Well, if you trust." Stop me if you've heard this argument before, because I mean it kind of goes along with what we're saying about how to debate effectively with emotional people. They'll say, I'll tell them, yeah, 70 to 80% of women initiate divorces. Basically, the whole system is designed to help women, and it's designed to hinder me. And if she divorces me, I have to pay for her. I have to pay for her side of things with, and I guess it depends on a state, but basically everything's in her favor. 9 times out of 10, she'll get the kid as well, custody of the child. Which, after saying all of this information and going further into it, like I didn't get oh man, that sucks. We gotta fix the system. This is bullshit. I didn't get that. With the women, I got, well, it's a trust thing. Do you trust your partner? Right? Because if you trust your partner, there's no issue.
Hmm. Well, no one knows the future, and men and women change their minds all the time. Men less so, because we base our future on our present and what we've been through, whether that's continuing with that route or not. And again, there's risks and rewards involved with being married by the court, being living with someone, being in a relationship with someone, or even having a one night or a couple night stand. So you have to understand these going forward. And my hats off to those guys that I got married not to get divorced, and but my life went the route of the court. So, but those guys that can make it work, which I think is a 1 to 2% potential in this world, especially in the West.
Mm-hmm.
98% of all relationships today are either on the downside or they're going to fail. There is a 1 to 2% delta I give, but I would love to see people get married and have kids and build a family.
What candidate for your situation, if you don't mind answering, like what was the nail in the coffin?
Well, I think the fact that over time you just lose respect for each other, and you lose. What happens when you live with someone or you get married is marriage or cohabitation creates familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. That's just reality. So the best way to keep a marriage together is to probably not be around each other a lot. We were around each other a lot. I worked out of the house. We raised kids together. We spent a lot of time together, and I just think eventually that just wears you down. And other things, you have different life tracks later in life. We got married at 25. And by the time you're 30 or 32, 35, your vision of life changes, especially with kids. What do you want going? I wanted more of a minimalistic lifestyle, right? I didn't want to buy all this crap and have vacation homes. I wanted just camping and very minimalistic living where she wanted, something different. So
That sounds super typical of us.
it was, and there's some monkey branching, but other than that on her end, but you know, um, I was in it for building what I built, and was I happy? No, I don't think I was happy, but I was used to it,
Hmm.
and that's what people have to remember. It's not easy being in a relationship.
I think it was easier back then in certain ways.
It was a lot
'Cause-
easier before social media and the phone. I'll tell you that.
yeah, because I mean, with like it's a lot of times with my like fiance, like it seems like it's really difficult. One because um, now my issue is like laptop. Sometimes I'll be on a laptop, but I notice with women in particular, it's the phone. Like you'll be sitting there, but then like watching a person, they'll just be on the phone, just over and over again. And I'll be looking at the phone, looking at what's going on in the phone. Like that's definitely not that important in terms
Well,
in the whole grand scheme of things.
yeah, the phone is the new boyfriend. That's what I call it. The phone is their boyfriend.
Holy shit!
If you think you can compete for her attention, if she's addicted to social media, you're absolutely mistaken. I mean, look at Anthony Bourdain, a very famous chef on the Food Network. He deleted himself because she monkey branched and she, was.
Yeah, he could have had almost any chick. He could have had any chick he wanted. It's too bad that he did that.
So
If
he
he
put
got a
all.
hold of red pill info, man, it would have fucked him up for a little while. But he
I don't
he
think.
would he
I
would have
don't.
crushed it.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys they resonate with having this awareness, but then they go back to the plantation because it's easier and they have a hope within them, a fantastical view that things will be great. I mean, we all do. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. We've all wished that, hey, we wish that things could be a lot different. We wish that the Disney story was truly a typical way to live, but it's not anymore. And if you think it is, you're gonna and something happens, you could delete yourself. You could have massive amounts of issues because you didn't have this awareness. And the awareness is not hating it; it's understanding it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and that's another thing I've noticed in terms of debating effectively with emotional people. Now, this is in particular with women. When you bring up unsavory truths, truths that don't sound like that make them sound bad as a group. It doesn't even have to talk about her as a person. If it's talking about womankind, women have like a hive mind. So
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about anything that has to do with like a woman, they're automatically going to see it, especially if it's a negative thing. They're automatically going to see it as a sign that you have negative emotions towards women,
Sure.
which I think is where they're getting at when they're saying, "Oh, are you a misogynist? Or you're a chauvinist?" Like I was called a chauvinist by my mother,
Huh.
and she was saying, "Well, you're a misogynist or something like that." And I kind of realized to myself, "Wow, this is how my dad, or this is probably how my dad got my mom." Because like that, a negative emotion, like you were saying, like it can inspire attraction. Like, it's really weird.
Well, a woman, if you give a woman everything, she'll disrespect you. If you don't give a woman anything, she'll be upset at you. So, um, but if you don't give them anything less, if you give them less than the other guy, you'll probably have a better outcome being with that woman, just because there's something to chase. There's something to aspire for from her end. But the emotions, emotions run. And so if you think that, especially today, women have the hive mind, right? They
Hmm.
expect all these guys to apologize, that they're the brunt of all the issues. They're going to be the ones that are blamed, like the guy that Red Pill Medicine said. He said, even though she called the popo and put him and evicted him, he's still saying she's a great woman. That's what they want. And if you don't do that, now you're considered toxic. You're considered abusive, controlling, and they don't like that. So until the hive mind really changes and realizes that masculine, strong men are what's needed, we're not going to see anything. Because then, if that's what women want, and women don't know what they want from second to second. But for the most part, if women knew that and they wanted strong, stoic, alpha, sigma type men, they wouldn't be after the betas,
Well,
right?
yeah,
So,
they're definitely not going to admit that because as a woman, you can't go against the herd. You go against the herd only in secret, but you can't go against it in public. And I agree. Because of that annoying natural instinct, I don't see it really happening uh, in the near future either. Now, granted, I
nope,
think what's
I
going
agree.
on.
Well, brother, this has been good. This has been a good stream. Let's do it again soon. I got to run out, but any closing?
Absolutely.
My closing comments is this: if you're getting involved in an emotional discussion with, and you're logical, you've already lost if you're going to even um, discuss. You need to set your facts down and walk away.
Yeah, it's a good rule. Thanks
All
for
right,
coming
brother.
on.
Okay, let's do it again. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right, take care, brother.
All right. So that was pretty much it, y'all. I kept bringing it around to debating, but I mean, as you know, in this particular realm, we like to talk about relationships and women. Um, so I want to read some of Emmanuel's stuff and then get some other stuff, some thoughts out before I end this. I wanted to end it at an hour, but I guess I went on till for an hour and 16, nearly an hour and 20 minutes. So he says often emotionality is only ever put in check by women in order to cater to their emotions. In single mother households, the emphasis isn't on logic or having control over your emotions. Hmm. Interesting. So we'll see. Yeah. Thing you're saying about black men asserting his manliness, yeah. I think women have ditched the duty aspect of relationships. I don't think anyone's gotten that package yet. No, they probably did. Oh, there he is. So I think women have ditched the duty aspects of relationships in exchange for pure fun. That's why they bail at the first sign. Those are my dogs. Those are the dogs. They always go nuts when someone opens the door. So I'm just reading Emmanuel's comment. I'll put it up on the screen. So I think women have ditched the duty of aspect of relationships in exchange for pure fun. That's why they bail at the first sign of difficulty that doesn't give them. Yeah. So honestly, if you don't train them all the way up until the age of 5 to be wives, I think you're fucked. Um, that's something I think is the case. Um, so um, another aspect of the whole debating effectively, um, one that I wanted to bring up. So I have Illimitable Man. He has some really good stuff, and I wanted to share his site because he talks about some of the techniques used. Let's see. So I'm gonna go through this real quick. I don't want to go too far into it, but and it's funny because he actually gets in an argument he gets in a debate with a woman under the comments, and you can kind of see some of the arguments he uses. But his posts are really good and they're very provocative, very similar to Rollo Tomas and how he presents information as well. So he has a comment or he has a quote saying idea who Wilkie Collins is, but this is like it's kind of true. So y'all can check this site out if you would like. It's illimitablemen.com. Um, let's see. So it's really good, and it would take a really long time to unpack. But I kind of want to. Maybe I can cover the top three things that I think people need to look out for. So I covered this. I was talking about pressure flipping. So pressure flipping, it could be like, so let's say someone is critiquing you or criticizing you, saying, "Well, your head looks kind of weird," right? So a pressure flip to that would be, "Well, your head looks kind of weird," right? So let's put that in argument form. Let's say you say, "Well, this largely happens to people who race in this particular car," right? Let's say you're talking about like a scenario. Say you have racers on a race car track, and you have people. Um, so these people get in a debate over what it requires. Like basically, let's say what's the better car or something like that. So, oh well, I drive a Porsche, and Porsches typically drive off of the track. Let's say that, but then let's say the other person didn't like that, and they say, well. Well, Ferraris drive off the track too, or this car drives off the track too. So I'm gonna have to bring this analogy back down to reality because I didn't realize it was hard when you go outside of it. So something simple as, let's say something as simple as, so in the black community you have a disproportionate amount of crime going on. So that means a lot of the crime in the country is actually committed by a very small percentage of the people. It kind of follows the Pareto distribution, but um, with so with that, let's just say, okay, well, a lot of people, a disproportionate amount of black people commit most of the crimes in the United States, right? So the uh, the pressure flip to that argument would be, well, white people commit those crimes too, right? But here's the thing: when you pressure flip, in a lot of ways, and a lot of the difficulty or the annoyingness with it is that you don't have the burden to prove. You don't have the burden of proof in terms of the logical information, and that's part of why it's extremely annoying to deal with someone who pressure flips. Um, or who, I guess there's probably another word for it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what type of fallacy that is. So I'll cover a couple of other ones real quick before I end the stream. So you got there's one called deferment. So deferment, I'll give you an example about deferment. So deferment would be my closest way to describe deferment. Um, so if deferment, let's say you got an argument over on the internet, and you presented an argument that was logical and the information was pretty reasonable. So a person who's using deferment, that particular technique or a logical fallacy, so they would actually say something like, "Well, I don't even have the time to demonstrate why your argument is completely retarded or useless or bad," right? So they give themselves a pretty convenient out in terms of not having to give the information to support an argument. So they defer the argument. So that's used quite commonly. Um, so what I notice with people who use deferment, they'll they'll demote your argument and they'll attack the credibility of your argument, but they won't provide a counter argument. But the way that they get away with that is by using an elaborate excuse. So the excuse is, "Well, I have things to do and I don't have enough time to do that right now," or or "I don't have enough time in the world to give you the information as to why you're wrong." It's convenient. It's super smart. The sophistry there is it's on point. Um, let's see. There's another one. So framing. Framing is a little bit weirder for me. Um, I don't want to go into framing too much, but whataboutism masked as a genuine. I've never heard it called whataboutism before. That's exactly it. Um, so the whataboutism thing. So hold on. So the what? Yeah. So people who are right hemisphere dominant, they tend to be holistic thinkers, which I didn't get into this with the conversation with the guests I had on. But holistic thinkers tend to want to explore other options and novel options. So when you bring up more left hemisphere dominant or logical linear thinking that's more sequential, a lot of times it's going to someone who has a right hemisphere dominant way of thinking, very creative, that kind of thing, but not linear in thought. And they randomly sequence information. It's not sequence like the information isn't doesn't have to be in a particular order. So those people are going to have that whataboutism, and it's extremely annoying. The only I don't know. I guess there's more conversations that I think I want to have about this because I actually don't know how to deal with that whataboutism. That's actually been a point of question for me for quite a while. Because if they say what about this, right? So a lot of times when I think about systems and conversation pieces like divorce and all those things, I'm trying to build a framework for how to solve something, but I also have to think about all the things that are wrong with the system, right? The whataboutism, it doesn't actually aim to solve a particular issue. It just highlights another aspect of said issue. Beautiful life. How's it going? Um, let's see. I might want to put that up as well. So I'm pretty much right there with you with that. Um, this was a good stream. I kind of want to cover this in the future, so I'll do a part two to how to debate effectively. And of course, these cats are gonna fight while I'm doing this too. Um, yeah, so I got at least two other streams planned for the future. This was a really good stream, and for anyone who wants to come up in the future, possibly as well. Well, I won't leave any information, but maybe Emmanuel, we might have to do a stream in the future because it was funny. The guy who was talking, he noticed you brought up a lot of good stuff, and he was calling it out. All right, y'all. So everybody remain safe during these times. Like that's something I don't think I have to say, but it's kind of serious out there. Um, so in terms of how to debate effectively with emotional people, the actual truth is to not do it. I think that's the best method. So he kind of alluded to that. The guest I had on, um, rebel against defeat. Uh, don't um, if you're gonna dabble with them, you need to be well versed in logical fallacies and you need to have practice because a lot of people who are emotionally based, they're like you get some people who are very Machiavellian, and they're very crafty with words. Like uh, Turd Flinging Monkey. I know some people don't like him, but he says some smart things. He says, women use words like magic spells. That's true. A lot of Machiavellian people. This includes women and men, but women are naturally Machiavellian. Um, it's you have to be you almost have to tap into your dark side when you're talking to certain people because if you're trying to talk to people at face value who are Machiavellian, you're gonna fail every single time. So be honest with yourself, determine what kind of person you are before you go into to jousting with words with people like that because more often than not, you're going to lose more time. You're going to lose a lot of energy doing that. So the best way to deal with that, if you can tell that the information is emotional, it's not actually logical, is to just stay out of it. Uh, yeah, that's it. Are you swimming?
I'm cutting onions.
Oh. Problem is that they often cite exceptions to disprove a strong trend. With something ridiculous. I'm assuming that's called a red herring, Emmanuel. I'm not sure if that's the case though. I think I have to do a little bit more research on this and come back to the conversation. So we're definitely gonna have to do a part two. It'd be cool to have you on for a part two in the future. Maybe I just talk about it when we're in a group with the other channel as well with Good Mother. Yeah, this is a big topic. Um, so I'm gonna leave this guy. I'm gonna leave this information here because this guy is pretty smart. He has a pretty high IQ and he gives information about what I'm talking about here. Try the nuance. By saying you're waffling. Interesting. I see. So it's you're kind of getting a 1-2 punch as a combination. Damn. You don't. I would argue you don't see that type of whataboutism from someone who's more on their left hemispheric side of thinking. So someone who's like on the autistic spectrum or like a neurotypical male. Um, Moreover, one who's not super emotional. You know, an emotional male, you're gonna, in my opinion, you're gonna get that same thing. And they win by saying you're waffling. Yeah, that's true. So as long as they can get you off of your, so as long as they can get you off your train of thought by switching the conversation, it automatically okay. So that I think there's an aspect of framing with that as well, because they're automatically framing you as a person who doesn't know what they're talking about just for the fact that they're. Oh my god. Okay, that's extremely complex. So just a thought. So they're the fact that they're automatically switching and saying, well, what about this? It calls into question your credibility um, without even having to say that. So they're, in a way, they're demoting your credibility, but at the same time, they're forcing you to be off balance with your argument and what you're saying. So they're forcing you to go on the defensive. And you're trying to defend exactly as you're saying, you're trying to defend what your information and the nuance that you're presenting. But then by that time, you already appear less credible than them. So you really are dealing with a sorcerer when you're having that kind of conversation. You're talking to what's her name? You're talking to Morgana at that point. Which good luck with that. If you're going to talk to a sorcerer, which when I say a sorcerer, it's a person who uses words as magic spells. When you're talking to a sorcerer, you need to have potions too, and you need to know how to use that stuff quickly because the implication, the implication, like they're very good at framing you in a certain way, and if you're not deft, if you're not fast on your feet, which you have to be careful when you're debating women and when you're debating emotional men because they're very deft. They're very deft with argumentation and very fast. And like I'm not saying that they're logical because it's not necessarily the case that they're very logical, but the Machiavellianism and the tactics it relies on emotionality. So if you give in to that emotion, that's really what's going to get you. But you do have to be quick on your feet cognitively because you have to think about this as well. Women are very their level of language uses is sophisticated in terms of like um, getting what they want from another person, and they utilize both aspects or both hemispheres of the brain for communication. Whereas males, I think we only use one part of our brain for communication for language, and they know a lot more words as well women. So you can kind of see there's a lot in the toolbox that they can use. So this isn't to say that women in general are going to naturally just make your life a living hell. But this is to say, whenever the argument or whenever the debate, the particular topic isn't something that they like, they can make your life a living hell by being a sorcerer. And if you're not willing to get down and dirty, if you here's the thing that men mess up at. You talk to the woman and you make logical appeals. Don't do that. If you have a woman and you're actually saying something that's truthful and that can be backed by actual facts and she doesn't accept it, you're automatically like, if she doesn't substantiate why she's, discounting your information, if she starts to, especially if she starts to attack your credibility, right then and there, you're arguing with a sorcerer. You're arguing with someone that uses words as magic spells. You can't do that. Now, as a man, I know you're going to do this because I've done it too. You think, well, I can convince him to think this way, to think about things logically because I'm smart. That's your ego talking. You can't do that. You can't do that for anyone. Your ego makes you want to convince someone that you're right. Now, regardless of whether you're right or not, it's not going to work. It only works if the person values logic, which they're not going to value logic if they're based in emotion. If they're more of an intuitive thinker, that's not going to happen. So, people who try to defend you by bombarding you with information, you're losing because you're trying to process. Exactly, exactly. Because they could be they're only worried about, they're not worried about the integrity. So people who are Machiavellian, they don't care about the integrity of the information that you're seeing, that you're saying or stating. They're trying to make you appear like the person, like they're trying to give the appearance to other people around you and you as well, that you are not credible, that you aren't a person worth taking seriously. And so, yeah, dude, you're bringing up some good stuff. I'm really happy that you're here. Um, so by bombarding you with information, um, the fact that you're taking too long to process that information, and there's a lot of ways they could do that too. Wow. So it actually ends up making them look smarter instead of just presenting you one piece of information at a time. See, that would be, you'd get that from a person, yeah. Which again, if you're talking to someone face like off of face value and they're already discrediting they're attacking your credibility or attacking you as a person using ad hominems, which ad hominems, basically attacking your character, personality, and stuff like that. Like that's standard MO with women. It's also standard MO with feminists. Standard, I'd imagine gay guys do it. Really feminine guys do it as well. A lot of guys would be annoyed by me saying that. I think um, so. Basically, weak-minded men and women will do that. Um, but the thing is, and this is pretty much the last thing I'm going to say. I don't want it to go for 2 hours. Um, the best thing to do really is to not debate them. And if you're going to debate them, you can state a logical point, like something that you believe is the case, and kind of destroy their argument. You can, but don't engage them in argumentation after that. So what I do sometimes is, on Facebook, so I'll bring up something, or someone will say something completely dumb, right? And I will give them the information as to why it's dumb. I'll go into the studies. I'll go into the background of why I believe my information is sufficient, but then I'll leave it at that. And that's typically only if the person is not capable of a logical debate. If they're capable of a logical debate, then you can have a banter back and forth. But in most cases, especially nowadays, I would imagine that's why we're not getting any ground in a lot of these issues. Is because they're going to people who are doing a power play. They're going to force you on a defensive. They're going to put you on a defensive, and yeah. Yeah, man, Jordan Peterson, he's really good at dealing with that stuff. He's pretty good. His argumentation skills are very good. He's very calm when he has conversations with people. He knows all the psychological tricks. And here's the funny thing: one of the Achilles' heels for women is that he has a high degree of ethos. Like his credibility is extremely high. Um, as smart as he is, if Jordan Peterson didn't have the credibility, if he wasn't a clinical psychologist, he'd be laughed out of the room because for a lot of the people he's talking to, it's a power game for them. They don't want to have a general. They don't want to have a. Most of them don't want to have a genuine discussion. But he has the credibility and the IQ and the intelligence to know what's going on, and he deals with it accordingly. So I guess that is another thing. You could just look at Jordan Peterson and see how he argues um, with people, and look at the various techniques that he uses. He set so there's a thing he does. I notice where the person will take it off into this large realm, right? So he'll slow down and he'll set the pace. So he won't let the person take it to some, because a lot of people when they argue, they'll do this and they'll speed on. And what about this? What about this? What about this? He'll take the pacing. So he'll take the pace of the conversation and he'll slow it down. And then once you see, maybe even he'll use his hands. He'll slow down the pace to where he can dissect the information and proceed to give 1-2 combinations to the other person. If you can slow down the information, then you can, you know. Yeah, yeah, it's a good. Yeah, that's a big one. This was a dope stream. I'm really happy I did this one. I got a couple of more coming in the future. There's one specifically coming Friday, one Friday at 4, I think, and then there's another one happening after that, which I think is going to be super big. I'm hoping it's big. Even if I don't have a lot of views, that's going to be a super dope stream. Um, so I'm bringing my friend on, and my friend he's basically a Chad. Um, some people in some circles they would call him select. Some people would call me semi-select, and in a lot of cases, I would have been called non-select. So we're gonna have that conversation: select with the non-select, or Chad with the nice guy or the educated lane. This is gonna be a good one. We're gonna have the conversation face to face, live stream. I think it'll be probably next week, early next week. But yeah, that's gonna be big. Um, Once again, I'm gonna wrap this up. I don't want to go to 2 hours. I can see I'm going to 2 hours. So, um, yeah. So when you're arguing with people who are Machiavellian, you have to be extremely careful. Now, generally speaking, when it's women, a lot of times, if you want to have a discussion with a woman and it actually goes somewhere, it has to be she has to have the same opinion as you. Otherwise, it will not be a good discussion. It will go bad, and she will likely use Machiavellian tactics, and you will probably feel like shit after that conversation. Same thing is true for talking to a guy. There's a good chance that will happen if the guy is in his emotions, and if the guy is trying to play power games, then you're gonna have that situation. You're not gonna like your conversation. So even with the guy, if they don't have the same opinions as you, you should probably call it a rat. That's a rat. Um, all right, y'all. Thanks for listening.